All right. All right. We should be live for another day of politics. Let me see if we are. Yes, we are. Perfect. YouTube live. Boom. Of yes, sir. All right, I'm gonna run this Moose on the Loose video while I set up the rest of Rumble and Kick. And then we'll get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Would just like to point out, going forward, that I stand with Moose on the Loose.
This opens up some space for them. Rollback of certain policies was almost tailor-made for an Avi Lewis NDP leadership campaign, or potentially a draft Guilbeault. Bring them on over.
We've got a bizarre one here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Julie DeBruce, Mark Carney's new environment minister, who took over from Steven Guilbeault in the last election there, going on CBC where she gets fact-checked by Rosemary Barton. It's a very bizarre thing. We've got a ton of stories here. Let's jump into this. As per usual here, we're starting off with some polling data. This is coming from Abacus Data. Some bizarre polling data in here as we're seeing direction of the country, and Canadians, you see this big spike at the end here, going up to 37%, nearly maxing out at 40% at the highest in the wrong direction. That's what that red means. So Canadians do not like the direction Canada's going. We can see the top issue facing Canadians here. Cost of living is dominating once again. The economy, number 2, healthcare. And look at this, housing and affordability is now moved up. Donald Trump has dropped to number 5 at 32%. But if we look at the government approval, we see Carney spike up from 44 to 48%, and disapproval has dropped. So I guess, I don't know if it's pipeline announcements or measures for steel workers or whatever it may be, something has led to Carney's approval going up a bit here, despite the country going the wrong direction. We've also got impressions of Mark Carney flat, but the negative impression dropping. So that's probably tied to those recent announcements as well. But then we've also got impressions of Pierre Poilievre dropping from 44 to 42, and positive impressions, you can see this was going down and then spiking up now. So this is a really bizarre set of data here. Getting to the poll itself, we've got 41% for the Liberals, 40% for the Conservatives. So you can see just a change of 1%. So it's neck and neck here. So if we did have an election right now, it would be a real coin toss. There's so many stories in the news right now. Let's just rapid fire a few of these. We've got this one here coming from Blacklock's Reporter. It says Quebec's anti-corruption police are now investigating the Quebec Liberal Party. You can see Pablo Rodriguez.
Dude, I gotta pause the video here just to mention that. Wow. Yeah. I gave the warning at the beginning. I had to give the warning. I felt like it was only necessary going forward. Dude. Whew. That's what our tax dollars, that's what it's going towards. They get paid, these MPs, these politicians get paid huge 6-figure salaries to discuss things they make up fucking yesterday. But they're talking about this bill being passed 2 years ago, and she couldn't even give a definition to what they were discussing. I don't know, man. It absolutely wild.
Was in Trudeau's cabinet, decided to leave to head up this party. Now they're wrapped up in this corruption scandal here. It says over an alleged plot to pay people to vote for Rodriguez in the leadership race. Wow. And with that, we're seeing polling coming out of Quebec. Well, Pablo Rodriguez not looking good here. 33 versus 81 seats. We got more news coming out of Ukraine. So we've got Kirk posting this one here where Melanie Joly met with this guy who's wrapped up in this corruption scandal, Ukraine. And with that, we've got America over there right now. I believe in Ukraine, they're trying to sort out a deal so that things can end. And what is Russia doing? They're sending in more pow-pows into Ukrainian cities. This is absolute madness. So jump in between, we got CBC and CTV, different panels here talking to Julie DeBruce. This is Carney's environment minister.
Comfortable are you with the suspension or cancellation of some of the measures that had been there put in place by Mr. Guilbeault before?
Yeah, look, I have a lot of respect for Steven. I worked with him for about 6 years as parliamentary secretary, so I've worked directly with him, including on files and on the environment. Yeah. But I really respectfully disagree with him on his characterization of this memorandum of understanding. I don't see it as backsliding, and
This is so weird. She worked as secretary for him and now is disagreeing with him. What an ugly narrative that Julie has to try to untie.
I don't see it as canceling programs. And I know that specifically, when we talk about things like the clean electricity regulations, those regulations remain in place. And I feel very strongly about that. And that's why I feel comfortable coming out and speaking with Canadians too.
So Vasi Kapelos asks her about this and basically just fact checks her as if she's pretending to be someone fully in favor of all this net zero stuff. Julie just fumbles and bumbles here trying to get an answer out.
I look at the analysis from the Canadian Climate Institute once again, where it pieced apart the policies by percentage of how much each would lead to reducing emissions by the targets that you set out, ambitious or not, they're in the legislation by 2030. And when you subtract the emissions cap, you're subtracting about 30% of what was going to get us there. When you subtract the fuel charge, you're subtracting about 8 or 9%. So how are you going to displace all of that? Because all your government keeps doing right now, including through this MOU, is rolling back a whole lot of stuff.
So I'll disagree with the characterization that we're rolling things back when we've actually committed to strengthening the industrial carbon price, strengthening methane regulations, extending the methane regulations to landfills, and also to building out infrastructure that in the long term does help us to move towards a cleaner electricity
But you've
grid.
taken away the emissions cap. I'm sorry, you've taken away the emissions cap. You've taken away the consumer carbon tax. If a conservative prime minister did that, your party would call them a climate change denier.
Well, so on the emissions cap, we
This is so embarrassing to watch. They're basically rolling back some of the policies because they don't work. They're destroying our country. And then what are they increasing? The industrial carbon tax, because Mark Carney can then leverage that into the carbon credit system. It's all about money. This has been a grift from day one. Somebody invented this back in the day as a grift, probably from the WF, who knows. They got a bunch of these eco warriors on board to push it, and listen to her try to defend this.
actually relied on expert advice. And in the budget, it was pretty clear how it was set out, that if we did the steps of strengthening the industrial carbon price, strengthening methane regulations, that there were measures in there, that there was a pathway to be able to remove the cap. And that
They had to roll back all these things, pausing the EV mandate. Remember that? They were going to force all of us to buy EVs starting next year. There would be a small portion, and then all the way up to whatever 2030 it would be like 100%. But none of this stuff works. Everything was imploding. The auto industry was imploding. Got the entire industry pushing back against them, saying, yo, what are you doing here? Now they're having to admit how awful these policies are. Here she's saying, well, Carney wants to increase the industrial carbon tax 6 times. That's where we'll make it up.
Would the goal be to be at $130 by the end of the decade? Because it was $170 by the end of the decade. Is that?
Yeah. So I have 2 things that I have to do right now. One for the country as a whole, which is actually like where this Alberta agreement fits.
Yep.
Is that we set out in the budget that I have to work on what the trajectory will be for.
They don't know. This is such a train wreck. They have no idea what's going on with anything here. Jumping over to this panel, we got Kathleen Monk.
I mean, that's not much of a shocker, though. Of course they don't know what they're doing. That's been on display for the past 10 years. And the whole idea that they're a different party is just not true. Fuck, man. It's brutal to watch. From the clip I uploaded, like 10, 15 minutes ago now, to this, them backtracking on everything, not even able to explain what they're doing. Like, the whole cabinet and caucus is a disaster, and it's cracking and falling apart very slowly. Very, very slowly. I can guarantee you almost we will see more ministers leave the party, follow with the Guilbeault and Freeland, the Freeland route. But other than that, I don't know. He's got to bring some fresh faces on, I guess. He's got to get rid of those Trudeau-era ministers. But I don't know, man. I truly believe that the Liberal Party is in a stage of chaos right now. But that's just me. That's just what I believe. They stood on their moral high ground for 10 entire years. And now all of those ministers that stood there are just massive hypocrites. And like, yeah, the climate grift, it's a grift. It's simply put as a grift. There's no other way to put it, right? They literally created environmental racism 2 years ago. Right? This is something they implemented 2 years ago. These are new grifts, and the levels they keep adding to them to make more money. It's not going to stop unless we get a party in there that just nukes the entire thing. That's probably not going to happen, though.
Mentioning Stephen Guilbeault, I guess there was talk of him going over to join the NDP.
If the Carney kind of adoption of the
That would be hilarious.
conservative agenda now makes the conservatives irrelevant, it actually may make New Democrats more relevant. So we all agree that New Democrats in the last election suffered a brutal blow, but this opens up some space for them. And it almost seems the MOU and the rollout yesterday and the rollback of certain policies was almost tailor-made for an Avi Lewis NDP leadership campaign, or potentially a draft Guilbeault, bring him on over.
They already rejected.
Campaign.
They said, no way.
Yeah. But so if you think of that, this opens up a space for those people who want to see the green climate transition, want to see new energy, an investment in clean electricity, all those things that Carney's saying he'll put on the line, and also are cognizant of the fact that David Eby has done the hard work. This is one fictional project of the pipeline versus 10 real projects that are moving ahead. And
so she's not wrong here. The more Carney moves more to the center, at least in some aspects here of his net zero agenda, because he's basically increasing the portions of it that will benefit him financially the most, the more that opens the left for the NDP to gobble up some seats with eco-climate agenda. Now, I don't know what the situation with Guilbeault is. If he was trying to get in there, he asked and the NDP didn't want him, I'm not sure, but this whole situation is a mess.
And if we want those to move ahead, and that New Democratic government is leading those in BC, you could see a coalition of New Democrats gaining strength and taking back some of those BC seats that the Liberals won in the last election.
Big shift.
Jump back to CBC, talking about the agreement MOU with Danielle Smith, specifically.
And honestly, that's all it takes. All it takes is Mark Carney to, and I hate to say this because he is not a conservative by any means, but to adopt a few more conservative style policies, to move, I guess you could say, more to the center. He's not a conservative. That it's the Liberal Party, for crying out loud. Let's not act like they're conservatives all of a sudden. But all it will take is for him to implement a few more policies that you could say favor a center to potential center-right view. And then the climate extremists in the NDP and the climate extremists in the Bloc will start to freak out like they are. And you will see seats go back to those parties. And it's a big shift. It's all potentially there, which would give the Conservatives the ability to slide in with, I would think, a minority government. I still don't think that the Conservatives would just blow by with this massive majority. But if the Liberal Party continues to fracture and we see MPs, D'Entremont, for example, people who just want to keep their jobs at the end of the day. That's really all it was, right? So more MPs that are sitting there thinking, maybe I'll jump ship from this. Maybe I won't win my riding next election or in a spring or summer election, because everybody keeps rumoring it. Guys, we're heading to this spring-summer election. It's going to happen next year. Big 2026 election. Carney's disappearing forever. I don't know. I don't know yet. Nobody knows. The polls say one thing, and then the polls say another thing next week. They change constantly. The polls are like somebody with multiple personality disorder. Which personality are you today? Which version of the polls am I speaking with today? I don't know how else to put it. You just need to wait for the final outcome. And then there's always the foreign interference that you got to speak about, which is quite obviously there. They speak about it in committees all the time. This isn't a secret. There's foreign influence of some sort, which leads to corruption within Elections Canada, which leads to potential rigged elections, ballots not being counted, votes being tossed aside, whatever the case is. My God, entire ballot boxes were missing and were appearing a week later. These are all possibilities.
Talking about the clean electricity regulation that'll be rolled back in Alberta only.
They remain in place, but they are paused for Alberta. And as you know, there are other provinces who don't like them either. Saskatchewan is one. How concerned are you that you are going to have to allow for carve-outs for other provinces?
So there isn't actually a carve-out when you read the section of the Memorandum of Understanding on the Clean Electricity Regulations. If I can kind of pull a step back, the way the Clean Electricity Regulations work is that they have a long pace before they actually start taking effect in 2035. And that was to give time for the provinces to be able to plan towards when it's going to be actually applying.
The Pathways Alliance Carbon and Capture Storage Project was a project in and of itself that was being spearheaded by the Alberta government, oil companies, some contributions perhaps from the federal government. Now it is conditional on the pipeline. Why make that choice? Why did they have to be in tandem as opposed to just going ahead with it?
Well, it was a matter of whether they were actually going ahead with it. And I think the idea that we would move ahead, it's only one of our tools, but carbon capture is one of the tools that can help us to reduce emissions. And
Nope, it's one of the tools that Mark Carney is going to use to capture more money that goes into his bank account here, being invested in 3 of the companies involved in the
Carbon capture, more like money capture. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's just a grift. It really is. And I won't be shocked if a Wikipedia link pops up under the stream after I'm done going on about how it's not a grift. It's like they literally have to pop up and put the propaganda right under the video. It's wild.
Pathways project. Direct conflict of interest.
If you go to on this channel, the second channel, the Andrew Scheer calling out like the climate grift or whatever during question period, there's a Wikipedia link right under it. I'll just pull it up right now. Hold on.
Should be against the law, but apparently it is not.
And so I think that having an agreement from industry, from Alberta, that they will move forward with carbon capture is important. And frankly, it makes sense for them economically to do it.
I want to talk about the industrial carbon price.
So here is the Andrew Scheer thing.
Killed the Northern Gateway pipeline project, making Canada more dependent on the U.S. Now this Prime Minister is putting on a big show, but he's setting up another process for a pipeline to fail with new hurdles and hoops, and worst of all, a massive increase to the industrial carbon tax. The proposed pipeline is never going to happen because this Prime Minister is giving a veto to the BC Premier. But what is guaranteed to happen after April 1st is Albertans will pay a very real and very massive hike to the industrial carbon tax. Why is this Prime Minister more intent on hiking carbon taxes instead of...
But anyway, you get the point. He's calling out the carbon tax, etc., and they literally slap a wiki link or a United Nations link or whatever that was right under it.
Pricing. So Alberta is, well, the government is touting Alberta's commitment to this plan now that would get them to $130 a ton. But there's no timeline. When will that happen then?
Yeah, so that's part of what we also have to negotiate.
Okay.
Again, April 1st is going to be a busy day because I also have until April 1st to reach an agreement on that. But when you think...
They don't know. They don't know any of this stuff. They just keep repealing regulations, moving things, trimming things down, adding stuff. They have no idea what they're doing here. They're trying to make everything work with the polls, with Canadians, voters. It's not working, though, because Canada's economy is tanking.
Think about it. $130 credit price for Alberta is more than 6 times really where they're at right now as their credit price. They're trading at about $20 to $25.
Mm-hmm.
And
so how much further is this going to push the separatist movement, the separatism movement in Alberta? Because they didn't want Ottawa involved, period. Right? That's the whole point of that movement. They don't want the carbon pricing. They don't want the insanity. They want to be able to do what they please with their resources, which makes sense. Every other province is allowed to, for the most part. Yeah, like by 6 times, they're going to increase the industrial carbon tax. The very thing the Alberta government froze, Danielle Smith signs an agreement to increase it by 6 times. Now, sure, they got rid of all these other things, but at the end of the day, this is like the main thing. And who's to say if the pipeline is even going to come? Who's to say it's going to come? Right? They could claim it's going to. They could boost everybody up and say, hey guys, Pipeline City on the way. We're going to build a pipeline here and there and everywhere. But we've already heard from a few groups now that they're not interested, and it's gonna have to go through the projects list. It's gonna have to go through all of those things that I mentioned time and time again. The Major Projects Office, Build Canada Committee, Minister LeBlanc, then the Cabinet and the Prime Minister. And through each and every stage of that, it's gonna have Native consultation, or whatever you want to call it, Indigenous input. And it's going to have all these other groups involved. I just don't believe a pipeline is going to come anytime soon. Literally anytime soon. Not within Carney's. If it does, if it comes within the next 4 years in Carney's term, I will shut down my YouTube. No, I won't. I'm not actually going to do that. But like, that would be insane. That would be crazy. I don't believe them for a second. I just don't. And I don't know if signing that MOU was a good thing. I don't know. They're continuing to increase the industrial carbon price, which literally makes everything more expensive. So I don't know at this point.
And I know that sounds in the weeds, but it isn't economic for moving people towards wanting to invest in low carbon technologies at $20, $25. So getting to $130, making that increase is a really big price signal. It's one of my most important tools to reduce emissions is the industrial carbon price.
Right, but
That's right, forcing Canadians by increasing carbon pricing from $25 to $130 per ton. And remember Mark Carney's announcement there, he got all giddy about, he said something and beyond, I believe, beyond $130 a ton. I think he was insinuating, as in going past that. Our country is
raising the carbon tax to infinity and beyond. That's what we're gonna get, guys. I mean, like, I just don't see... When the Liberals are excited about raising the industrial carbon price, I don't think you signed a good deal. Like, yeah, you got some things, but at the end of the day, they're just gonna keep raising it. And now you're gonna be known as the premier who wanted prosperity for Alberta, but then signed a deal taxing the oil and gas industry by 6 times. And that's what they're claiming, right? They're claiming they want to increase it by 6 times what it already is. Like, holy Christ. I don't know, guys.
is run by complete buffoons.
Target previously was $170 a ton.
170 is the headline price, and the credit price usually trades lower than the headline price. And there are a lot of things that still have to get negotiated between Alberta.
This is such a clown show. It's hard to even follow what's going on. So yeah, the previous headline price, the top level was 170. Now they're making the floor 130, even though the actual trading level is 25. They're increasing it 600% up to 130 as the floor. And then the ceiling, I think Mark Carney is just going to completely remove. He's going to blow the ceiling off. So there is no upper ceiling. This is a train wreck. This will only bring more despair in our country. Next up, I need to address a creator coming after me. I don't know what the deal is here. I've never actually had someone on the left come at me so hard before. Ironically, it's someone from the right, basically in regards to pension funds, all this stuff that I've been talking about, these connect.
Oh shit, I didn't think he was actually going to like bring this up. And I didn't find out about it until I was in what was it, Capital Clips channel, Canadian Capital Clips, earlier today. Everybody was talking about the Moose on the Loose Northern Perspective drama. And I was kind of like, damn, you know, that's kind of funny because I like Moose on the Loose a lot. Or Moose on the Loose a lot. So I think I'm going to have to stand with Moose here. Just saying.
Actions I found.
Like his chart is like no other. Nobody else has a chart like this with this much information. By the way, that he just kind of publicly throws out there as he pleases, right? Every single one of his videos. I don't know, man.
My hypothesis on what I think's happening here with Mark Carney, Goldman Sachs. First off, a big thank you to the many of you that have sent me messages or let me know what's going on here, as well as all the comments backing me and supporting me and all the work I do on my channel here. The argument is I'm essentially making a hypothesis of what I think's going to happen. That's what I do on my channel. I look up stuff, I make connections here, I dig up all the information I can find, and I hypothesize, I infer what I think will happen. And apparently my theory is wrong. Okay, it's freedom of speech. In this case, Mark Carney came out and said himself,
"We will take significant measures to elevate our relationship. The Minister of Finance will lead a delegation of Canada's pension funds, $2 trillion of capital," which almost begins to sound significant in the UAE. $2 trillion in capital, the Canadian pension funds. They will come here next year early to deepen existing partnerships and develop new investment opportunities together.
develop new investment opportunities together? Is he trying to entice the UAE with Canada pension funds, even though, as I've said in both of my videos on pension funds, that Mark Carney doesn't have control over the pension funds of Canada, but there are people in those organizations that he has ties to, or that he's friends with, or that he knows, and we already know that because they're already invested in Brookfield. They're already on board with him. Caisse de Dupont, investor in Brookfield Catalytic Transition Fund. This is not my piece of data here, as I'm going to show you here, as well as IMCO, investor in Global Transition Fund 1, which is what Mark Carney will directly make money off of. OTPP, founding investment partner and anchor investor in Brookfield Global Transition Fund, as in one of the first investors, and also the PSP, the Public Sector Pension Board, investor in Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1. So this is beyond speculation. We don't need to speculate. We know that some of these pension funds support Mark Carney's low carbon net zero agenda. And what I've been very clear on, my speculation is that he's going to get people, or he's going to try to get people in all of these pension funds to try to invest in this because it helps enrich himself. So honestly, I'm very confused that a conservative creator would come after me when that doesn't help save Canada. My whole purpose is to help save Canada. For that reason, I'm not going to get involved in the drama. I don't do drama. If you don't know what I'm talking about, great, because drama is not going to save Canada. And me making a big response video and making a thing out of it, it won't help Canadians who are living in their vans or single mothers who can barely put food on the table. I will just stick to what I do, which is digging into Mark Carney and exposing all the stuff he's in. I will not be involved in attacking other creators because that does not help Canada. With all that said, we do have some new...
And cheers to that. That's where we're going to leave that, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, I didn't think he was going to actually mention it because... his channel just focuses on ripping apart the liberals, right? So that was interesting. We got a little bit of that. Moving onward, we have the White House briefing. I can only imagine the amount of stupidity from the reporters that we are about to witness. And I have no idea what's going to be talked about because so much happens in the US. If you blink, you miss like 17 major events. So let's get right into it.
9th cabinet meeting of the year alongside his incredible cabinet who continue to deliver for the American people at a record pace. Later in the afternoon tomorrow, the president will make an announcement in the Oval Office on his initiative to create Trump accounts to give the next generation of Americans a jump start on savings. It will be a very exciting announcement indeed, especially for all of the parents across the country with young children and babies. On Thursday, President Trump will host the presidents of the Republic of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo to sign the historic peace and economic agreement that he brokered. On Thursday night, the President and the First Lady will celebrate one of America's greatest traditions, the lighting of the national Christmas tree on the Ellipse. And on Friday, President Trump will attend the FIFA World Cup final draw at the Kennedy Center. You all will be seeing and hearing from the President every day this week, so you have me today, and then he will take on the rest of the week himself. Next, I would like to address the horrific tragedy that took place in our nation's capital that last week. A foreign terrorist that the Biden administration failed to properly vet ambushed 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard who were honorably serving here to keep the residents and visitors of Washington, D.C. safe. U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf was severely wounded in the attack and remains hospitalized while he continues to fight for his life. Tragically, U.S. Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom died of her wounds. She was just 20 years old. President Trump and the entire White House are praying for Andrew's full recovery at the request of his parents and their personal phone call with the president over the weekend. And we are keeping Sarah's family and friends in our prayers during this unimaginably difficult time. Sarah and Andrew represent the very best of America. 2 young patriots who were willing to put on the uniform and risk their lives in defense of their fellow Americans. Both of them truly embody the profound words spoken by Jesus Christ in the gospel. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Sarah and Andrew are heroes, and we will never forget their sacrifice. That means ensuring the monster responsible for this atrocity is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and faces the most severe punishment possible. It also means reckoning with why this atrocity was allowed to happen in the first place, so that it may never occur again. Here are the facts. The terrorist who gunned down American soldiers blocks away from the White House in an ambush was an Afghan national who was flown into our country by Joe Biden's administration in September 2021 in the chaotic wake of their botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of our great country. Joe Biden's historic failure in Afghanistan continues to haunt this country and our men and women in uniform. Not only did this surrender lead to a suicide bombing that killed 13 American heroes in Kabul, but now National Guard troops were shot on U.S. soil by the same kind of enemy. We continue to live with the deadly consequences of Joe Biden's horrific leadership. Nearly 100,000 Afghans were recklessly released into the United States with little to no vetting. There was no regard for the disorder and violence that this would unleash on American communities and American culture. Reportedly, thousands of these strangers and unknown individuals were flagged to the Biden administration for national security, public safety, and fraud concerns. But the terrifying truth is that the Afghanistan debacle is just a small part of Democrats' complete and total betrayal of the American people during the Biden years. The tragedy that we just witnessed the day before Thanksgiving is a reminder that untold thousands of terrorists, gang members, and criminals were invited into our country and remain here to this very day. The border is now secure, thanks to President Trump, but the threat in our interior remains real and urgent. These public safety threats are already inside our land, and President Trump was elected on a promise to find and remove them, and he has already taken significant steps and made significant progress towards fulfilling this promise. But there is more work to be done because President Trump believes that he has a sacred obligation to reverse the calamity of mass, unchecked migration into our country. As a result, the Trump administration is now actively re-examining all of the Afghans imported into the country by Joe Biden. Any individual who threatens our national security or our citizenry will be subject to removal. President Trump has already permanently paused migration of foreign nationals from third world countries that pose a very high risk to the United States. For too long, past American presidents supported self-destructive immigration policies that allowed foreigners who outright hate our country and have no interest in assimilating into our culture. They've allowed these individuals to flood peaceful American communities. This disastrous approach has drained our welfare program, driven up the cost of housing, suppressed wages, and jeopardized the safety of law-abiding American citizens. In fact, according to a new bombshell report from the New York Times, Somalian migrants in Minnesota have defrauded nearly $1 billion in taxpayer-funded benefits under Democrat Governor Walz's leadership. President Trump is putting an end to this dangerous America Last approach. His position is rooted in common sense. In the wake of last week's atrocity, it is more important than ever to finish carrying out the president's mass deportation operation. America cannot allow millions upon millions of unvetted illegal aliens to be rewarded with amnesty after they broke our nation's laws to come here. They must go back to their home countries. It is also essential to immediately address the massive fraud and corruption that has been going on for decades in other aspects of our immigration system, most notably when it comes to asylum claims. Millions of people who have come here under false pretenses are told blatant lies now enjoy temporary legal status. President Trump is ending this scam as well, and I would point out that the Democrats have tried to block this administration from doing so at every turn with lawsuit after lawsuit. The hard truth is that even when it comes to our legal immigration system, past presidents have failed to ensure that all prospective citizens love America, will add value and contribute to our communities, and will assimilate into our culture. Leaders have a duty to defend and advance the interests of their own people, not foreign nationals. Leaders also have a duty to preserve the integrity and character of our nation's national identity. That is why President Trump is more committed than ever to fully restoring American sovereignty by keeping our borders secure, removing all illegal alien invaders, and rebuilding a legal immigration system that makes sense and benefits our country. President Trump has no higher responsibility than to defend our homeland and our people, and he will never waver in doing so. With that, I will open it up to questions, and we'll lead today with Isabel Brown, who is in our new media seat. She's a very popular face on television these days. She's built a great independent media podcast and platform with the Daily Wire, and I appreciate your being here, Isabel. Thank you for being
Caroline,
here.
appreciate it and appreciate the briefing. Many Americans, in light of these recent events that you just mentioned, are starting to say that we are being invaded as a country, culturally and logistically, when it comes to immigration. And we know that immigration without assimilation is indeed invasion. So given the recent remarks from Vice President Vance on a college campus about dramatically reducing legal immigration to address some of this crisis, and President Trump's Truth Social post last week about individuals who may be non-compatible with Western civilization, are there any conversations happening or plans being made behind the scenes for the administration to implement at least a temporary immigration moratorium, for example, in light of what the American people might be calling for?
So, Isabel, it's a great question, and I think I spoke a little bit to the heart of your question in my opener there. I would add that the Trump administration has done more to limit migration, both illegal and legal, than any administration in history. And I'll just walk you through some of the actions that we have taken thus far. Number one, the Trump administration issued a travel ban for 19 countries, including Afghanistan, special immigrant visas, which is a legal pathway to get here, which we know many Afghans have utilized to come into the country, have now been paused since the tragic shooting last week. Refugee admissions were suspended for Afghans from this administration on day one, and refugee admissions into the country right now are essentially at zero, with the exception of Afrikaners fleeing persecution in South Africa. The State Department has also heightened their scrutiny and vetting of all visas and have revoked visas, as you know, for those who do not align with our country's national interests. The Secretary of State has the right to do that, and we've taken unprecedented action to do just that. We are also now pausing all asylum adjudications for additional vetting as well. And so additional actions I don't have to read out for you today, but I would just remark that the president has made tremendous progress on this front. And it's why it's so crucial that we not only secure the borders, which the president did in record time. We have zero illegal aliens entering into the country month after month, but we also are taking a look at those who are already in the interior of our country and removing them if they are here illegally, and also taking a look at these visas. Again, having a visa in the United States is not a right, it is a privilege. And the Secretary of State, if you are deemed contrary to our country's foreign national interests, has the right to revoke that privilege. Thank you. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Excuse me. Regarding Venezuela, the president said yesterday that Secretary Hegseth had denied that second strike, that reported second strike on an alleged drug vote on September 2nd. The secretary said to the president that didn't happen. But to clarify, I just wanted you to clear this up. In his social media post, Secretary Hegseth didn't go into details about that strike. He just said U.S. operations in the area were lawful, and he said that the story and media reports were fabricated. So to be clear, does the administration deny that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Gabe, and I have a statement to read for you here. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. And I would just add one more point to remind the American public why these lethal strikes are taking place. Because this administration has designated these narco-terrorists as foreign terrorist organizations. The president has a right to take them out if they are threatening the United States of America and if they are bringing illegal narcotics that are killing our citizens at a record rate, which is what they are doing. And under the previous administration, there was enough fentanyl trafficked into our country to kill every American man, woman, and child many times over. And so that's why you've seen a drastic difference in this administration's policy with respect to the last, and it's one of the many reasons the American public reelected this president and support this Secretary of War in conducting these strikes.
So to be clear, to clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
And a separate question, the president several days ago said it was his intention to pardon the former president of Honduras. who was a convicted drug trafficker. And yesterday on Air Force One, the president
course
said
he
that
was.
if someone sells drugs in that country, that doesn't mean you arrest the president and put him in jail for the rest of his life. How is that different than what the administration is accusing Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro of?
You're cherry picking the president's statement a little bit yesterday, as he also said yesterday the people of Honduras have highlighted to him how the former president Hernandez was set up. This was a clear Biden over prosecution. He was the president of this country. He was in the opposition party. He was opposed to the values of the previous administration, and they charged him because he was president of Honduras. There were some other egregious facts that came out during this trial, and I would encourage you to report on them. His court-appointed lawyer was only given 3 weeks to prepare for trial. He shared that his conviction was lawfare by the leftist party, who, quote, struck a deal with the Biden-Harris administration. Hernandez has highlighted there was virtually no independent evidence presented, and many of his conviction was based on testimony from many admitted criminals who hoped that cooperating would reduce their own penalties. So the president heard the concerns from many people, as he does, and he's, of course, within his constitutional authority to sign clemency for whomever he deems worthy of that. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline.
All right, very briefly, we're going to switch gears here. A Rebel News reporter, I believe the same one from the rally we watched the other day, was attacked by what I could only assume Antifa.
And a father with a kid in a stroller stole her microphone. And so let's just show what happened to Alexa, and then we'll show what happened to Guillaume, because Guillaume ultimately ended up in the hospital.
Okay, so if not Antifa, then just a bunch of deranged lunatics in Montreal.
Hospital with stitches after this. So let's go into Alexis. You see the stroller? Guy comes back. The security is moving her. And she's got to have 4 security with her to move through this crowd.
Yeah, she should probably have more, to be honest. Are you kidding me? She's surrounded by deranged lunatics. She probably needs more than 4 security. I'm just saying. Like, you're going into the belly of the beast. These people know you're Rebel News. They hate you and have made your mind up about you before you even get there. And you're going directly towards them. Obviously, you have the right to interview them, freedom of speech, even though I don't know if that really exists in Canada anymore. But I guess freedom of press to some degree, and you should have the ability to ask these questions. But like I said, these people have already made their minds up about you, and they hate your guts no matter what you say or do. And you're going directly into the middle of them. She probably needs more than 4 security guards. Like, the security guards probably need security guards. That's the kind of level they're at. Right? You're dealing with people that cover their faces. They cover their faces because they have bad intentions. They can sit there and say, oh, it's cold. It's cold outside. I'll cover my face because it's a scarf. Yeah, bullshit. Bullshit.
Guy comes back with his stroller.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Having your kid at one of these out of control whatevers, protests or whatever the hell you want to call this, cesspool of insanity. And yeah, having your kid there while trying to assault a reporter. What are you doing with yourself, buddy? Grab a hold of yourself, would you?
Swipe at her. Take your kid home, you psycho. What are you doing? Like, the reason we show this is to show just how dangerous it is for Alexa and Guillaume to work. 4 security guards clearly didn't seem like enough there. They're surrounded, and they've got a box around her to move her out of what looked like an escalating situation there when she was starting to get surrounded by, like I said, the unholy allowance of trans crazy people, union crazy people, and Hamas radicals.
No, and that was a good move to get her out of there. I think going forward in Montreal, Sheila, which is the hottest spot for this kind of leftist violence, is to have, is to equip Guillaume and Alexa with telephoto lens, because it's kind of like doing wildlife photography at this stage. A couple of other points.
Wildlife photography. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. They act like absolute animals. They do.
Entitlement is outrageous. Yeah, if you want to boo, that's one thing. But can you imagine that you want to demonstrate your disapproval of a media personality or a media outlet by actually using violence, by actually trying to steal their equipment? Who the hell do these people think they are? Secondly, Antifa, as you know, Sheila, contraction between anti and fascist, but they use all the techniques of fascism.
Yeah, it's great marketing.
Yeah.
That they can get away with calling themselves that. Imagine Rosie Barton suffering the mean tweets. I mean, called a row of Montreal police behind her at the debate, the federal leaders debate. They lined up those police after Ezra went over and asked for a right of reply to the lies that they were broadcasting. And they were lies because CBC had to issue a correction. And he simply asked for a right of reply, kind of asked her if she was eating her feelings, and challenged her to join the Fat Challenge, which Ezra should give us an update on.
All right, so we'll do a bit of a skip ahead here just to see if they show anything further. But if not, then we'll head back to Caroline for the next 10 or so minutes, and then we'll head right into question period.
Gabe's question, you said that the follow-up strike was lawful. What law is it that allows no survivors?
The strike conducted on September 2nd was conducted in self-defense to protect Americans in vital United States interests. The strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict.
On this pardon for the Honduran president, does it at all undercut the administration's messaging while you have these congressional Republicans defending the strikes on the narco-terrorists and then a pardon for a convicted drug trafficker? Does that make it more difficult for your members to defend your administration's policy?
I don't think so, Jackie. I think that President Trump has been quite clear in his defense of the United States homeland to stop these illegal narcotics from coming to our borders, whether that's by land or by sea. And he's also made it quite clear that he wants to correct the wrongs of the weaponized Justice Department under the previous administration. And Ouija, I'll call on you because I think we're wearing matching blazers today.
I was going to
Great
compliment
minds.
yours. Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
So just to be clear, to clarify on Jackie and Gabe, did Admiral Bradley order that second strike because there were still survivors after the initial strike?
Again, as I read for you, Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law. He directed the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat of narco-terrorists to the United States was completely eliminated.
So was the initial order from Secretary Hegseth, everyone be killed, and did that come from President Trump?
I saw that quoted in a Washington Post story. I would reject that the Secretary of War ever said that. However, the president has made it quite clear that if narco-terrorists, again, are trafficking illegal drugs towards the United States, he has the authority to kill them. And that's what this administration is doing. Danny.
Follow up on the MRI, because President Trump yesterday said that he would release the results of his MRI. Is that happening right now?
It is happening right now. As part of, and this is a summary from the president's physician, and we will release it right now. I think my team has it teed up for all of you. I'll read it for you, and then you'll get it physically as well. As part of President Trump's comprehensive executive physical, advanced imaging was performed because men in his age group benefit from a thorough evaluation of cardiovascular and abdominal health. The purpose of this imaging is preventative, to identify any issues early, confirm overall health, and ensure the president maintains long-term vitality and function. President Trump's cardiovascular imaging was perfectly normal. No evidence of arterial narrowing impairing blood flow or abnormalities in the heart or major vessels. The heart chambers are normal in size, the vessel walls appear smooth and healthy, and there are no signs of inflammation or clotting. Overall, his cardiovascular system shows excellent health. His abdominal imaging is also perfectly normal. All major organs appear very healthy and well perfused. Everything evaluated is functioning within normal limits with no acute or chronic concerns. In summary, this level of detailed assessment is standard for an executive physical at President Trump's age and confirms that he remains in excellent overall health. Again, we will provide that to you. I think that's quite a bit of detail, and in the effort of transparency, the president promised it last night, and we have delivered today. So there you go. Danny.
Thanks, Caroline. Just going back to Venezuela, can you confirm that President Trump is going to be hosting a meeting of his national security team in the Oval Office today on Venezuela? And what are they going to discuss? Are they hoping to reach a kind of final decision on that?
Out of the effort of transparency, I will confirm that the president will be meeting with his national security team on this subject and on many matters. He meets with his national security team quite often. He's the commander-in-chief. It's part of his responsibility to ensure that peace is ongoing throughout the world. I'm definitely not going to detail the specifics of a meeting between the president and his national security team that's taking place in the Oval Office, but I'm happy to confirm that meeting is taking place for you.
Can you tell us, is there still, what's the position on whether US troops on the ground is a possibility there? Is that, I know you've answered that before, but what's the current operative
in
status?
Venezuela? I think my previous answer stands. There's many options at the president's disposal that are on the table, and I'll let him speak on those. Ed.
The U.S. announced a trade framework deal with the United Kingdom on pharmaceuticals, where they will pay 25% more, and the savings theoretically will go back to American consumers. What guarantees are in that savings will in fact go back to the American consumer and not be sucked up by the company?
I'm going to be honest with you, Ed. I'll get you the answer to that question after the briefing.
So the American Rescue Plan,
Sure.
funded a number of universal income.
Kush will get you that answer, right, Kush? My trade guy over here.
The American Rescue Plan funded a number of universal basic income programs. Now Cook County, Illinois is extending that program into 2026 with $7.5 million of taxpayer money. What does the White House think about that?
I'll also get you an answer on that after the briefing.
It's over to.
Go ahead. Sure.
And then in the interest of transparency, does the White House support releasing the Department of Defense's video of those September 2nd strikes on those military boats? And also, separate topic on presidential pardon power. Why did the president commute the sentence of David Gentile recently? He was a private equity executive. He served 12 days out of a 7-year sentence. Prosecutors said he defrauded $1.6 billion with thousands of victims, including veterans, farmers, teachers. Why was he pardoned?
To your first question, that's definitely not a decision for me to make. I would defer you to the Department of War. It's also probably a decision for the president himself to make. As for your second question with respect to that pardon, he issued a commutation for Mr. Gentile, who's the former CEO and co-founder of GBP Capital Holdings. Unlike similar companies, GBP paid regular annualized distributions to its investors. In 2015, GBP disclosed to investors the possibility of using investor capital to pay some of these distributions rather than funding them from current operations. Even though this was disclosed to investors, the Biden Department of Justice claimed it was a Ponzi scheme. This claim was profoundly be undercut by the fact that GBP had explicitly told investors what would happen. At trial, the government was unable to tie any supposedly fraudulent representations to Mr. Gentile. In short, again, this is another example that has been brought to the president's attention of a weaponization of justice from the previous administration, and therefore he signed this commutation.
So say that these people were defrauded.
I just read you a very detailed summary of why the commutation was made. Sure. In the middle with the red tie.
Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, Andrew, go ahead, and then you.
In wake of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor
Go ahead
Greene's early resignation, reports last week indicated that other House Republicans might consider doing the same. Does the president have any concerns in light of those reports about other House Republicans potentially leaving early, as well as the other announced retirements that we saw in the last couple of days?
Look, I think the president maintains very good relationships with the vast majority, maybe with the exception of one or two. I think many in this room know who I'm referring to. Very good relationships with members of Capitol Hill within the Republican Party. And the president clearly is the unequivocal leader of the Republican Party. I think it was a recent CNN poll that actually showed that more than 90% of Republicans continue to support President Trump as the leader. So he maintains very good relations, as does his entire team here at the White House. And of course, we have a very slim margin in the House, and the president wants that to continue. Andrew, go ahead. Sure.
First on the Venezuela strike.
All right, that is going to do it for the White House briefing. There's still a ton more to go, but we are heading directly into question period very soon. Here we go.
Us to turn our attention to something entirely different.
Sadly, had to flip on as soon as a liberal came up, but don't worry, question period will begin.
It's a day built on simple gestures that mean a lot. Supporting a local charity, checking in on a neighbor, giving a ride, sharing a meal, or stepping up for someone who could use a hand. In Dartmouth, Cole Harbour, and in communities across this great country, we see this spirit every day, especially from nonprofits, charities, and the incredible volunteers who keep them going, to shine a little extra light on their work and join in ourselves. Let's take tomorrow and lift people up in big and small ways. Generosity is contagious, and I hope we all catch it.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, the annual hunger report from Feed Ontario came out today, and it shows just how hard life in Canada has become. For the 9th year in a row, food bank use has increased. More than 1 million Ontarians visited a food bank 8.7 million times in the last year, the highest level ever recorded. These are not conspiracies, these are facts. The more the Liberals spend, the more Canadians go hungry. With this Prime Minister who thinks like a banker,
And Mark Carney is not showing up to question period today.
not as people. It doesn't matter how hard you work in the Liberals' cost of living crisis, as 23% of food bank users were employed and nearly 1/3 were children. As we head into the cold winter months, food banks are warning they're at a breaking point. Some fear they'll run out of food within 6 months. The Liberals boast about their school food program, yet there is nothing to celebrate when kids grow hungry. This isn't the Hunger Games, but under this so-called new government, the capital feasts while the districts fight to survive. Families can't live on Liberal talking points and paper promises.
The honourable member for Markham-Stouffville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We recently lost a great Canadian. I first knew Alan Wells when we worked together at the Regional Municipality of York. A chartered accountant by profession, he served there with dedication for 27 years, including as Commissioner of Social Services and finally as Chief Administrative Officer and my boss. After his retirement, our paths crossed again when I was the Provincial Member of Parliament appointed to serve on the Rouge Park Alliance, of which he was chair. Under his leadership, along with our colleague, the member for Wellington Halton Hills, we were able finally to establish the Rouge National Urban Park. A dedicated environmentalist, Blue Jays fan, fishing enthusiast, former Uxbridge Town Councillor, engaged supporter of the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust, and so much more. His contributions will benefit our communities for generations to come. My sincere condolences to Alan's family, friends, and all those who had the privilege of working alongside him. We'll be missing those twinkling eyes, Alan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Flamborough, Glanbrook, Brant North.
Mr. Speaker, last year alone, 1 million Ontarians needed a food bank, and that totaled
8.7 million visits, according to today's Feed Ontario Hunger report, which of course is the highest number ever recorded.
That's right.
Of those visitors, 1 in 3 were children, 1 in 3 were people with disabilities, and 1 in 4 were working Ontarians who still couldn't make enough to make ends meet.
Absolutely.
Ontario saw twice as many seniors turning to food banks compared to 5 years ago. And 3 in 5 of those visitors were social assistance recipients who simply can't keep up with the cost of living. This isn't normal. This isn't sustainable. And after a decade of Liberal spending and broken promises, Canadians can't afford to live. So how many more warning signs will this government ignore while families, workers, seniors are being pushed to the breaking point?
Yeah.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I wish to highlight the incredible work done by the women and men of the reserves of the Canadian Forces in Trois-Rivières, the members of the NCFM Radisson and the 12th Regiment. Every day demonstrate professionalism and hard work. They define our armed forces. The work that they do to help fellow citizens in floods, for example, during the COVID crisis or around the world, for example, in Operation Reassurance with NATO, demonstrates that they are always ready to stand for Canada. They work hard to protect and represent Canada with honour and merit, and their work must be noted. I thank them for their work. Many of them have a professional life outside of their engagement to the armed forces, on top of the hours in evenings and weekends where they train and work when we need them. We thank them for their engagement, their courage, and we thank you for serving our region and our country. We are proud of you.
The Honourable Member for Swift Current Grasslands, Kindersley.
Speaker, earlier this year, the Prime Minister left his position at Brookfield Asset Management as head of ESG and Impact Fund Investing. He claims to have put all of his assets in a blind trust and disclosed his investments with the Ethics Commissioner. With a conflict of interest screen in place, everyone's supposed to just trust the process after the head of Canada's government left working with a company known for using tax havens in the Caribbean. Right. It also means he must recuse himself from policy discussions involving multinational investment firms. How's that going to happen consistently while running a G7 country? Last week, a senior Brookfield executive admitted to the Ethics Committee that the Prime Minister wouldn't have to worry about managing so many conflicts of interest if he just sold his assets instead of putting them in a blind trust. It was also confirmed that 95% of Brookfield's companies are not included in his screen. By the way, the same Brookfield executive had a meeting with the Prime Minister in October after he already met with the Brookfield CEO back in May. Are Canadians really supposed to believe the blind trust is hidden from them? What more do we need to see that this government is starting yet another round of Liberal corruption?
The Honourable Member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, it's a privilege today to rise to celebrate a great Canadian, a great leader, and a good friend. For 10 years, Julia Hannigsberg has served as CEO at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital in Don Valley West. Holland Bloorview has become an incredible centre of excellence with a reputation in Canada and abroad. Holland Bloorview recently received the highest possible rating from Accreditation Canada, an exemplary standing recognizing its commitment to excellence in all parts of healthcare delivery. This is just one of the marks of Julia's incredible leadership. She's combined her passion for children with disabilities, her work ethic, and her magnetic personality to make Holland Bloorview a place of innovative treatments, of the highest level of respect for children and their families as it promotes social justice and inclusion for children and youth with disabilities. Holland Bloorview is a family. It continues to do great work. It will be missing Julia. Her legacy will continue.
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
All right, here we go. Question period.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians should be able to eat their fill, but the Inequality Observation Authority said that food insecurity has gone up by 82% in Quebec. And there has been a 116% increase in the number of people going to food banks. 1.7 million Quebecers cannot eat their fill. Why is this government forcing this? Why is this Liberal government forcing Quebecers to pay more on their taxes and on inflation? They're feeding bureaucracy instead of feeding their families.
I know what Pierre is doing.
Secretary of State for Youth and Children and Youth.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No parent should have any difficulty in feeding their children, but on this side of the House, we have invested many times in food at school, investing in children, tax cuts for 22 million Canadians. We are investing in affordable housing, which is essential to fight poverty. On this side of the House, we're here for families. On the other side, they vote against these measures every single time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Opposition.
We vote against measures that feed bureaucracy instead of feed families and children, Mr. Speaker. Since the creation of the school food program, the number of children who need to go to food banks has doubled, and 90% of children don't get anything from this program. Even if we believe government figures, every time the government spends more, it becomes more expensive in food inflation on top of taxes on food. So why are they forcing Canadians? Why are they forcing Canadians to pay for bureaucracy rather than food for their family? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, my colleague just talked about the food school program. There's also the childcare benefit. We could talk about automatic benefits. So no bureaucracy when things are automatic. And these programs directly help mothers and fathers who are living food insecurity, which, yes, is too common in our society. Mr. Speaker, why does this leader and this party vote against these measures every single time? Measures that help those who suffer from food insecurity.
The Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, today Algoma announced it's laying off 1,000 steel workers, nearly a third of its workforce in the Soo. Our thoughts are with them. The Prime Minister looked them in the eye and promised he would protect their jobs, that he would negotiate a win, and I quote, have a deal by July 21st, but it was a bait and switch that is costing people their livelihoods. On top of that, Liberals are hammering the steel mill with a higher industrial carbon tax. Isn't it bad enough that the Prime Minister broke his promise on trade? Why is he going ahead with an industrial carbon tax that will kill even more steel jobs?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, our thoughts are with the workers affected by the unjustified and unjustifiable tariffs imposed by the White House.
Oh, Melanie.
And we'll continue to work with them as Algoma Steel is going through a difficult situation, to say the least. Mr. Speaker, my team and I have been in contact with Algoma's leadership team. We absolutely have every confidence in the Algoma workers as they're going through this hardship, and we will make sure that we support them as they're developing new products and also accessing new markets. We'll fight for these jobs, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, more promises and more Liberal thoughts will not put food on the table of those out-of-work steelworkers. And they're not alone. The Liberal food cost crisis is growing, according to today's Feed Ontario report, which reveals that food bank use is up 13% in 1 year and 165% since this Prime Minister became the economic advisor to this Liberal government. 8.7 million Ontario visits in 1 year to the Ontario Food Bank, while this Prime Minister hikes carbon taxes on food production. Why is he driving more people into hunger with higher taxes?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, these Conservatives fight against the supports that Canadian families talk about needing. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, they just asked a question about workers that are facing job losses at Algoma Steel. And yet, Mr. Speaker, when they had a chance to vote for expansion of EI, for easier access, longer duration, and more generous benefits, they voted against it, Mr. Speaker. So how do they in any way have the right to stand up and talk about the needs of Canadians when they stand in the way of the supports that those very Canadians need?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The supports that those Canadians want and need is a paycheck, Mr. Speaker. they want to be able to afford food. They should be able. In a country with this much farmland and this much wealth, our people should be able to eat. But according to the latest report by Feed Ontario, there's been a 165% increase in food bank use in Ontario alone since this Prime Minister joined this government, yet he wants to go ahead with an industrial carbon tax on farm equipment, food processors, and fertilizer that will drive up the cost of food. Why does he get fat on his tax havens while he taxes people?
Mr. Speaker, it's amazing to hear the Leader of the Opposition, because the first thing we did is...
It is amazing to hear him.
that Canadians would have more money in their pocket, Mr. Speaker. We, in fact, reduced taxes for Canadians, 22 million Canadians. But you know what, Mr. Speaker, what's most disturbing for Canadians watching at home? At every step of the way, where we were there for families, where we were there for workers, where we were there for Canadians, they stand in the way, Mr. Speaker. That's the leader who voted against Canadian. On this side of the House, we believe in Canada. We're going to grow this country. We're going to work for families. We're going to protect the worker. We're going to build Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister didn't just break his promises on food, also on housing. He said he'd double home building. But today, a report out from the Missing Middle shows that housing starts are down 34% across 34 Ontario municipalities. Condo starts down 51%. Yet the Prime Minister goes ahead with a Liberal industrial carbon tax on the steel, aluminum, glass, and other inputs required to build homes. It is a tax on homes, all while he hides his millions of dollars in a Bermuda tax haven. Why does he hide his money abroad while taxing homes here in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Solid question.
Mr. Speaker, if the Leader of the Opposition and Conservatives actually cared about affordable housing, they would have voted for the budget with $13 billion for affordable housing. Mr. Speaker, they could have voted for $1 billion to fight homelessness and build supportive housing. These Conservatives stalled the first-time home buyers GST break since June. They have no credibility on affordable housing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the oil agreement between the Liberals and Alberta is a betrayal of the climate. Canada is abandoning the global fight for the environment. That is what the Liberal MP for Laurier-Sainte-Marie confirmed yesterday on Tout le monde en parle, a TV show. I quote, "If we're honest with Canadians, we can no longer achieve our 2030 targets with the recent announcements. It's simply not possible." Mr. Speaker, will the Liberals be as honest as the MP and confirm to Quebecers and Canadians that they have absolutely no intention of meeting their targets? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, the agreement from last week is a major piece of progress for climate change and the environment in Canada. Carbon capturing, new connections for renewable energies throughout Western Canada, nuclear energy, a clear process with clear conditions imposed.
Okay, so hear me out on this. Poilievre opened question period today by focusing on Quebec and Quebecers. He didn't say Canadians, he said Quebecers. The Bloc Québécois are going to continue to hammer this climate activist, yada yada, this, that, and the fourth. People who live in Quebec, who want to just simply be able to afford things, are going to hear how Poilievre speaks about them and how the price of living has gone up and how affordability across the board is up, or how things aren't affordable essentially anymore. Those people are now going to drop the Québécois in the bloc and go with Poilievre. That's how I'm seeing this. He opened up question period by focusing specifically on Quebec and the affordability issues. The Bloc Québécois are just talking about climate. It's the only thing they have done for the past, 2 weeks now. While the Liberals continue to play around trying to appease everybody, they're going to lose seats to the NDP because people are going to go, well, what about climate, this, that, and the fourth? Liberals will lose seats to the NDP because the NDP are climate crazy, and the Bloc will lose seats to the Conservatives because Poilievre, now this is just a one-time occurrence, but if he continues to do this, opening up question period by speaking directly to Quebec, he's trying to take away the vote from the Bloc. That's what that would be. That's just how I see it. Plus, nobody wants... I'm talking over this right now. Nobody wants to hear this. They're going on about climate, this, that, and the fourth. It's all just a grift. Let's be real here.
Quebec has elected 44 Liberal MPs, and they are now being betrayed. Alberta elected 2, and its wildest, oiliest dreams are coming true. So we must ask the question again. What is the point of voting for Quebec MPs who don't even defend Quebec's interests? The Honourable Minister for Industry. Mr. Speaker, the 44 MPs from Quebec are proud to defend this government, and we will defend the interests of Quebec because in the last election, Quebec has told us very clearly that they wanted us to protect them with regards to what is happening in the States. Given the current geopolitical climate that is ever-changing, given that the States also made decisions with regards to energy, we must be able to be sovereign with our energy. And that's why we've made this decision to have a strong agreement with Alberta.
Honourable member for Thornhill.
Once upon a time in Canada, you could work hard, earn a decent living, and build a better life. In a decade of Liberal policy, that bargain has been blown to pieces. A CTV report this weekend showed that even families earning $200 grand are being driven out of Toronto because they can't afford a basement rental, a home, or anything else. Last year, 35,000 households fled the GTA, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Is Move Somewhere Cheaper the new official government slogan of these Liberals for Canadians who can't afford to stay in their homes?
Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, well, it's hypocrisy to hear this from the Conservatives. All of a sudden, they're concerned about affordable housing. Building starts are up across Canada this year versus last year. If you look at year to year, we're moving up. We are investing $13 billion in Build Canada Homes. That's focused on non-market housing and market housing that leverages it. Mr. Speaker, we're getting no support from the Conservatives to scale up affordable housing at an unprecedented rate, and we expect that if they're going to speak out here about it.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, it is clear we would never support any of the policies that doubled home prices over the last decade. But families aren't just leaving Toronto because it's expensive. They're leaving because it's dangerous. We have needles in parks and crack pipes on the subway, and everybody is just supposed to pretend that all of this is normal. Does the government understand that public safety failures and the cost of housing, the cost of food, the cost of everything else are pushing Canadians out of their own communities after 10 years of their Liberal failures?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, it'd be really nice if these Conservatives would read the reports that they quote in the House of Commons. Food Banks Ontario talks about the importance of increasing base rates for social assistance, making sure that people living in poverty have sufficient social supports, Mr. Speaker, investing in income supports for Canadians like we have done through the Canada Disability Support payment, Mr. Speaker. The kinds of recommendations coming out of these reports fly in the face of the individualism that we hear over on the other side, Mr. Speaker. What Canadians know is that sometimes people face hard times, and when they do, they want their country to be there for them.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable, Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, whilst the Prime Minister continues to reap profits sheltered from taxation in Bermuda, the middle class here in Canada is now directly affected by this Liberal government's hidden taxes on every grocery. The Quebec Observatory of Inequalities reveals today that nearly 20% of workers suffer from food insecurity. This doubled in 4 years. Even with a steady job, we don't have enough to cope with rising food costs and rent costs. Why is this Prime Minister so proud to continue in the same direction with record deficits and spending, which will only make life even more expensive for Canadians and even more difficult when it comes to getting food? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Youth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I'd like to highlight that no parents should find it difficult to feed their children. I was in Nova Scotia this weekend. I was lucky enough to meet mothers, women who work in childcare centres, who take care of our children. They could not stress enough how important our measures have been for them to reduce the cost of childcare, to improve the childcare benefit. They are very happy with these investments made, But the Conservatives keep voting against. The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable-Lotbinière. I'll give one impact of 10 years of Liberal governance: eating less to be able to afford housing. That is the sad choice that Canadians have to make. The Observatory has stated that food insecurity has nearly doubled in 4 years as a result of Liberal inflationary policies. 1 in 3 suffer from it. Severe food insecurity has increased by 63% in 3 years. It means skipping meals, weight loss, and extreme deprivation. And the Prime Minister tells young people and tenants that we'll have to make sacrifices in the future. How many more will have to sacrifice everything to enrich Brookfield and all Canadians? Mr. Speaker, this is a serious issue, and what my colleague did not mention was that the first thing we did is reduce income tax for Canadians. 22 million Canadians will now pay less tax. The second measure that the Conservatives voted against, and people need to note this because they voted against measures to build new homes. Affordable housing is the basis of affordability, Mr. Speaker. If they were really serious, if they were so concerned with this, every single one of them would have supported Budget 2025.
Honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
At a time when families are under unprecedented financial pressures, Canadians expect their government to put them first. Right. While this Prime Minister travels abroad, meeting with dictators and autocrats, Canadians here at home are struggling to make ends meet. In parts of Ontario, food bank visits have increased by over 250%. This budget was an opportunity for the government to lower the cost of living by eliminating the industrial carbon tax. Instead, they callously increased it. Why?
Yeah, you tell us.
Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives voted against lowering the cost of living when they voted against Budget 2025 because they voted against food in schools for children. They voted against a tax cut for middle-income Canadians.
What else?
They voted against $75 million in apprenticeship training and against a refundable tax credit for personal support workers.
Really? Oh my God.
They also voted against $45 million in funding to address gender-based violence.
Wow.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians and seniors want to know who these Conservatives are fighting for, because it certainly isn't them.
The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
Instead of disingenuous replies to very serious questions, Canadians deserve answers. Let me share the state of Ontario, of food banks in Ontario. 2 in 3 food banks are concerned about sustaining their operations over the next 6 months. 1 in 2 worry they will not have enough food to meet the needs in their community. And directly from the Hunger Report, quote, over the past 5 years, the proportion of first-time food bank visitors have increased. The trend is unsurprising as overall food bank use has nearly doubled. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister explain why he's driving up grocery costs?
Yeah.
While he's refusing.
The honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives voted against lowering the cost of living for seniors when they voted against Budget 2025. They voted against old age security. They voted against the guaranteed income supplement. They voted against the New Horizons for Seniors program. They voted against anti-fraud measures that protect seniors from scams. They voted against a tax credit for personal support workers that support seniors who need care. They voted against dental care for over 6 million Canadians that are currently taking advantage of that. Canadians want to know, Mr. Speaker, who these Conservatives are fighting for, because it clearly isn't them.
The honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, food bank usage is at a dangerously high level. With over 1 million people using the food bank in Ontario, this past year usage has skyrocketed 165%. Parents take pride in providing for their families. However, the cost of living crisis, 29% of food bank users are children. Wow. When will this Liberal government stop playing games with their Brookfield buddies and stop the industrial carbon tax so Canadians can afford to feed their families?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Mr. Speaker, Feed Ontario and Food Banks Canada do important work on the front lines, but they also make important recommendations for government, Mr. Speaker. And what are some of those recommendations? They recommended that Budget 2025 include automatic benefits, the Canada Disability Benefit, which was brought back by our government, National School Food Program, which was made permanent by our government, which the Conservatives recently called garbage. Mr. Speaker, they called on the government to make sure that we were building more affordable housing, and Build Canada Homes does just that. Mr. Speaker, how do the Conservatives sleep at night? Just exploiting the challenges that Canadians are facing for their own political gain without following one suggestion.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the Canada-Alberta oil agreement is a betrayal of the climate. Canada is abandoning its greenhouse gas reduction targets. It is abandoning all of its environmental policies of the last 10 years. It is abandoning biodiversity by revoking the moratorium on oil tankers. It is abandoning even the protection of Indigenous lands. At this rate, all that will remain of the Environment Minister's mandate is to rubber stamp the Prime Minister's oil agreement. The Honourable Secretary of State for Nature. I'm not sure, Mr. Speaker, that we could talk about betrayal. Our government is finding a new strategy to meet significant objectives. The Prime Minister, myself, the 44 Liberal Quebec MPs,
I bet you are.
We all have environmental values. We share them and will continue to better explain things, but we will have strategies to meet our objectives. We have to be able to do so. And in this agreement, there are important tools to do so. And on top of that, Alberta will help us to contribute for the environment. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, once again, the Liberals are all ashamed. They talk about everything except their dirty oil pipelines from the tar sands. They are ashamed to admit that they are no longer fighting climate change by abandoning their greenhouse gas reduction targets. Worse, they are ashamed to admit that they are even going to accelerate climate change with 1.4...
I honestly wonder how much damage the Bloc are going to do to themselves by going on about this and nothing else. It's been at least 2.5, 3 weeks now of this. I mean, I don't know.
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, when the Bloc speaks in such ways, in ways that no one really understands, at the end of the day, we have an environmental plan with Alberta to work on renewable energies in Western Canada, concentrate on nuclear energy with very specific conditions for conventional energy. At the same time, we're working with Quebec and all other provinces to continue our progress that will make Canada a leader in renewable energy throughout the world. The Honourable Member for Richmond-North-Athabasca. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Christmas parties, asking people to bring food, to donate to food banks are more present than ever. There has been a striking increase in food bank uses. We've gone from 11% of people going to them to 20% in 2023 under this Liberal government. Even people with jobs can't make ends meet. Why does the Prime Minister insist on keeping the gas tax that makes food more expensive? The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our budget helps Canadians to move forward. In the report, it is said that we need to make access to support more easy. That's what we've done with the automatic tax return that will help more than 5 million Canadians obtain what they are owed. They will get support like the childcare benefit that gives close to $8,000 per child. We are here for Canadian families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Richmond-North-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, I invite the colleague to go to food banks and see the people waiting in line. The situation is dire. It doesn't work. 600,000 Quebecers go to food banks every month. It's good that we have organizations and kind-hearted people that help in my community. What we see is a Liberal government that needs to be accountable. How can it choose to reduce taxes on luxury yachts when people find it hard to eat? Are there any other Liberal MPs, like the one from Laurier-Sainte-Marie, that will say, this is a straw that breaks a camel's back? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, just like the MP, I always go to these kind of fundraiser events. I go to food banks in this festive season. We show the same solidarity that Quebecers have always shown and that Canadians have always shown. People at those events ask me why Conservatives always vote against food support for children in school. Why do they vote against the child benefit? Why do they vote against tax reductions? Why do they vote against dental insurance and farmer insurance? Why do the Conservatives keep voting against support for vulnerable people?
For Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Food banks across Vancouver Island are overwhelmed, Mr. Speaker. We're seeing a surge in seniors, young families, newcomers, and increasingly full-time workers who cannot afford the price of food. These are people who played by the rules, who worked hard, and who never imagined they would need a food bank just to get through the week. Instead of helping, the Prime Minister is increasing the industrial carbon tax, driving up the cost of transporting and producing food, and making groceries even more expensive. Why is the Prime Minister insisting on hiking the industrial carbon tax when British Columbians can't afford to feed their families?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, we are supporting seniors and individuals across Vancouver Island to ensure that they have an affordable life. For example, I met with the Mustard Seed in my riding of Esquimalt-Saanich-Sooke, where they are running several food programs to ensure food security. This includes a food program called Flourish for children that ensures that they are fed, and this takes advantage of the National School Food Program. They're also ensuring that they can run their programs with the Canada Summer Jobs Program. These are initiatives that are so key to ensuring that people are fed well on Vancouver Island, initiatives that the Conservatives voted against.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
I asked a question, Mr. Speaker, and I got a deflection. People in my community can speak to the impact of the industrial carbon tax because, unlike the Prime Minister, they do go to the grocery store. And it's not just my local food bank, Mr. Speaker. The Saanich Food Bank, in that member's riding, says they've also been seeing more young families, seniors, and newcomers. Family Services of Greater Vancouver is also seeing more full-time workers. Right now, everyone is in need. So I ask again, will the Prime Minister commit to eliminate the industrial carbon tax?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, you know what Canadians and Vancouver Islanders need to ensure an affordable life? They need money in their jeans. They need things like the old age security. They need things like the guaranteed income supplement. They need things like the child tax benefit. These things put money in folks' jeans. These are initiatives that the Conservatives voted against time and time again.
Very good.
Honourable Member for Mission Mascouy Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, the Family Services of Greater Vancouver reports record demand for Christmas food hampers and food banks in general. They outline that working full-time families, even those in higher income tax brackets, can't afford the basics. For 9 straight months, grocery prices across Canada have risen faster than inflation. Yet this government keeps piling on costs, driving food prices even higher while Canadians struggle to meet their basic needs. Why is the Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax on things like cold storage and fertilizer, making food even more expensive for struggling Canadian families?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, here we go again with the imaginary taxes. In fact, the food professor himself said one of the hardest things to predict is the effect of climate change on the cost of food. They don't use that quote when they're, misleading Canadians with inaccurate information. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we know what helps families. It's actually money in your pocket. So when the Canada Child Benefit is indexed to inflation, when the OES and GIS are there for seniors, when we have dental care and pharmacare and affordable early learning and child care, Mr. Speaker, these things are reducing the cost for families and putting money in the pockets of Canadians. That's how you help.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg South.
Mr. Speaker, in the last election, we committed to build Canada strong, to make Canada an energy superpower, grow the strongest economy in the G7, and strengthen industrial carbon pricing. Last week's Memorandum of Understanding between Canada and Alberta provides a framework to advance those goals. Can the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources explain how Alberta and Canada will work together with Indigenous rights holders in British Columbia to get projects built, create good jobs, and diversify our exports beyond the United States?
Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, last week I invited the Conservatives to come to Calgary. You know what they would have seen, Mr. Speaker? Not one, but two standing ovations from a sold-out crowd in Calgary. Why? Because this MOU is about getting results for Canadians. That means more certainty for investment, unprecedented collaboration with Alberta, and a clear path to move energy infrastructure projects forward. This will get done while increasing durability of industrial carbon pricing and requiring consultation with British Columbia and respecting the rights of Indigenous peoples. Mr. Speaker, that's how we build Canada strong.
The honourable member for Calgary East.
Leave it in the ground. Liberals outed themselves, admitting their fake announcement last week isn't a pipeline approval. The eco-radical Liberal member from Victoria admitted there's no route, there's no project, there's no proponent, which means no pipeline. Who needs pipeline opponents when you have Liberal caucus members like that? The Prime Minister is fueling confusion to divide Canadians, all while talking out of both sides of his mouth. To the Prime Minister, when will shovels be in the ground? Just a year.
Yeah! Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I guess the member opposite didn't listen to his premier, because his premier said it was a great day for Alberta. If the Conservatives are serious about getting things built, they should clarify whether they support this Made in Canada agreement or whether they will keep opposing cooperation, undermining investment, scrapping policies that will help Canada compete in a lower carbon world.
Member for Calgary East.
The difference is Conservatives will build pipelines while the Liberals build pipe dreams. That answer is as fake as when the Prime Minister says he's working on the best interests of Canadians and not Brookfield. Entropy is a carbon capture company getting massive Canadian handouts. Their biggest investor is Brookfield. This Prime Minister is more worried about making big bucks for his Brookfield buddies and building pipe dreams. Starving Canadians want to know, how much are the Prime Minister and his Brookfield buddies getting bankrolled by Canadians instead of getting a pipeline built?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, here they go again with conspiracy theories. Perhaps they could get on board with getting things built, with stop undermining investment certainty, and stop trying to scrap policies that will get us to be an energy superpower in a low-carbon world.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Northwest.
Last week, the Liberal Minister for Natural Resources blatantly disrespected Indigenous groups by rudely offering pipeline consultations over Zoom. Not only is this insulting, but consultations with Indigenous groups should have started 8 months ago in person when the Liberals promised to move at a scale and speed not seen in generations. Canadians support pipelines.
8
Many
months
Indigenous groups
ago.
do as well. So my question is, was last week's announcement just another Liberal photo op underpinned by reconciliatory rhetoric?
Yeah!
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, I addressed those comments last week. I apologize for those comments. This MOU lays out clearly how we will work with Indigenous peoples to get things built in Canada.
How long is it going to take for native consultation on a project like that? He said 8 months ago.
Approval is mainly due to pre-consultations, which this Liberal government hasn't done. Instead, this Liberal
The
government
pipeline's never
proposed
getting
new
built.
consultations
It's just
over
that
Zoom,
simple.
over video calls, to deal with constitutionally protected rights and title. Now the Liberals say it's up to Alberta to get consent, which is wrong. This is Canada's responsibility.
Hear, hear.
When will the Liberals deal with constitutionally protected rights and title longer because it's too late to deal with pre-consultations?
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All major projects require the duty to consult and, if appropriate, accommodation. The projects, as they move forward, require that consultation, and that is what we will do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Canada used to be a country that built things, that got things done, that built the Canadian Pacific Railway through the Rockies and across the Canadian Shield. Today, we are governed by Liberals that spend more time building fake backdrops for press conferences than on nation-building projects to secure our sovereignty from the United States. A new pipeline to the Pacific was already approved 11 years ago, and the Liberals killed it. McDonald didn't promise one day to maybe review a proposal and hope a railway got built. He promised a route to the Pacific, and he delivered. Will this government do the same, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, this summer we signed a historic agreement to forge a new, ambitious and comprehensive partnership with European countries. Today, the Prime Minister announced the conclusion of negotiations for Canada's participation in SAFE. This will unlock billions and billions of dollars in defence opportunities for our Canadian businesses. It'll give our defence industry expanded access to the European market, new reliable supplies for the Canadian Armed Forces, catalyze massive private investment in Canada. Mr. Speaker, we can compete and we can win. We're the only non-European country able to participate. We're building Canada strong.
Honourable Member for Bow River.
Mr. Speaker, last week Liberal members scrambled to explain that their so-called MOU with Alberta was not the approval of a pipeline, but is just more consultations. And the BC Liberal caucus rushed to distance themselves from this entirely. The same agreement includes a massive increase in the industrial carbon tax, a hike that will raise the cost of everything for families and businesses already struggling under this government. At committee today, the minister admitted that Alberta's exemption for the clean electricity regulations will take place way down the road. So, Mr. Speaker, when these Liberals say that they can move at a scale and speed not seen in generations, do they mean building projects or just raising taxes?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's in a trade war, and it's about time we all recognize that. Our agreement with Alberta is a wartime-like Team Canada plan to strengthen our hand and put Canada in a winning position.
Anyway, I'd like to continue with the answer, but we need a little more silence. I think we're good now. The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
I will continue. This MOU is about growing exports beyond a single customer while driving down emissions with strong industrial carbon pricing and a commitment to decarbonization projects. Our goal is to create investment certainty, reduce regulatory overlap, and ensure meaningful consultation with provinces and Indigenous communities.
Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, termination letters are starting to roll out for CAMI workers out in Ingersoll just weeks before Christmas. One of the workers said it's a punch right to the gut. But on October 23rd, the Minister of Industry said, and I quote, "I expect a full update within 15 days from GM." Well, her self-imposed deadline has come and gone. There is no plan. There is no action. There is no update. Our workers can't keep feeding themselves off of empty Liberal promises. So after breaking her own promises, why should our auto workers believe a word she says?
Mr. Speaker, I beg to differ. You know why? Because the workers don't agree with my colleague's statement. The unionized workers are completely behind the government's plan to push back against any form of movement at Ingersoll, because we believe that GM can act along with the government and along with Unifor to bring back a new model.
She's got nothing.
I've had several meetings. I even went to Ingersoll. I met with Unifor, and Mr. Speaker will continue to fight for these jobs.
The Honourable Member for Elgin St. Thomas.
When GM shut down the CAMI plant and laid off 1,200 workers, the industry minister claimed she was on it. She said she was demanding a full update from GM within 15 days and that she would offer transparency to Canadians. That was 39 days ago. No clarity, no plan, no relief for auto workers in Elgin, St. Thomas, and London, who this Liberal government told they would have their backs. When the Prime Minister was asked about standing up for Canadian jobs, he said, "Who cares?" My question is to the Industry Minister. Does she?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, we are all very much aware that the auto workers fight American tariffs. And that is why we've been supporting all of them, working with Unifor, working with Lana Pine, who's on speed dial, and to whom which I speak pretty much every day. That being said, we'll continue to fight against Stellantis to make sure that they bring back their operation at Brampton. We'll make sure that we work with GM at the Kami plant in Ingersoll, because we think that there's a path towards a good news story.
The honourable
Yikes. She's flustered. She's got nothing.
Government bothered to read the
That was brutal.
before Canadian
Holy shit.
Canadian jobs would be protected before giving Stellantis billions of dollars in taxpayers' money. The Minister of Industry did not read it. The Deputy Minister for Industry and the past Deputy Minister of Industry did not read it. Finance Canada lawyers did not read it. They all pointed their fingers at the former Industry Minister, who is, of course, the Finance Minister now. So before giving billions in taxpayers' dollars to a project whose jobs are now fleeing to the U.S.,
Francois Champagne screwing up again.
the contracts.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, not only did the entire team read it, but you know what we read? We read what the Harper government did in 2009 when they bailed out GM and Chrysler at the time. And you know what we saw? We saw that there was no job protection in that deal.
Did she say 2009?
We'll make sure that we fight for these jobs.
Holy Christ, talk about going back.
And they should stop just whining. They should just get on board and make sure we work.
L'honorable député de Vaudreuil.
Mr. Speaker, we know that artificial intelligence may be central to the economy of the future. Everything from healthcare to transportation has the potential to be revolutionized by AI. Canadians want to be confident that Canada is staying at the cutting edge of AI innovations. Can a Minister of Artificial Intelligence tell the House how our government is supporting Canada's AI ecosystem and ensuring that Canadian researchers and companies continue to lead globally?
Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
I want to thank my colleague for the good question, for his leadership in his community of Vaudreuil. Canadian pioneers like Geoffrey Hinton and Joshua Bengio helped invent modern AI right here in Canada. And our three world-leading institutes, Mila in Montreal, Amy in Edmonton, and Vector in Toronto, are success stories. Mr. Speaker, we just invested more, $42.5 million in new compute for researchers all over the country. As the head of our digital research said, we're ensuring innovators have the tools they can to compete globally while keeping our data sovereign. We're building here in Canada.
Member for Newmarket Aurora.
A resident pleaded with me. My family and I are struggling with the rent costs and the price of food, and they're not alone. A CTV News article tells us that 35,000 families are fleeing the GTA because staying in the GTA means living on edge financially with very little room to grow. Families are being uprooted, generations torn apart. Canadians are forced to leave the very communities that they grew up in. Increasing the industrial carbon tax increases the cost of cement, steel, and all the materials that go into building homes. Why is this Liberal government increasing the industrial carbon tax and making housing even more expensive?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the good news is that the price of housing is actually coming down. We're seeing from the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report in October, average rents are down across Canada, average price of housing is down, mortgage rates are down, housing starts are up. Mr. Speaker, this side of the House is doing something about housing affordability. That side of the House is voting against it.
Member for Newmarket Aurora.
All we hear from these Liberals are empty promises. For the last decade, they've been promising the same things. They know these ideas don't work, and the record speaks the truth. In the GTA, housing starts have plunged 34%, not increase. In just 9 months, condo starts are down 51%. And the slowdown in the construction industry means 35,000 lost years of employment for Canadians. Instead of building homes, the Liberals are piling on more bureaucracy and increasing the industrial carbon tax. Why can they stop raising punishing taxes, driving away our jobs and investment while Canadians cannot afford a home or food?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, This side of the House has proposed a budget that has unprecedented investment in affordable housing. The Conservative side of the House has an opportunity to support $13 billion investment in affordable housing, Mr. Speaker. Conservatives have dragged the first-time homebuyers tax break on GST since June. That was an opportunity to save first-time homebuyers money. Mr. Speaker, we're giving them opportunities to support our investment in affordability and affordable housing across Canada. Thank you.
For York Centre.
Over 35,000 families fled the GTA last year because they can't afford a home. CTV followed a Toronto woman who couldn't buy a house with a $200,000 income. The Liberals pretend that the impact of the industrial carbon tax on a new house is imaginary, but clearly industrial carbon tax increases the cost of cement, the cost of steel, and the cost of all materials that go into new homes. Last month, only 25 new condos were sold in Toronto, in a city of 3 million. When families are fleeing the GTA, why do the Liberals make housing even more expensive by increasing the industrial carbon tax? Why?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Speaker, I want to recognize the Northern Ontario mayors who are here this week talking about their incredible work to attract people to Northern Ontario. These mayors are actually investing in the very things that create affordable housing, using the Housing Accelerator, working with infrastructure, working with the province of Ontario, making sure that as critical mineral projects boom in our region, we have the housing to accommodate those workers. Mr. Speaker, good things are coming for Northern Ontario.
L'honorable député de Compton-Stanstead.
Mr. Speaker, last week, despite obstruction and stalling from the Conservative, we successfully referred Bill C-12 back to the House. This legislation is critical to securing our borders, strengthening our immigration system, and keeping Canadians safe. Can the Minister of Public Safety tell Canadians why this legislation is essential to ensuring their safety and protection?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Compton-Stanstead for her incredible work in the SECU Committee, and I want to thank the members of the SECU Committee for making sure that Bill C-12 passes report stage of committee. Bill C-12 will give law enforcement the tools to keep our borders secure, combat organized crimes, auto theft, extortion, money laundering, and the trafficking of illegal weapons and drugs, Mr. Speaker. The bill will enhance the integrity of our immigration system by creating robust screening standards as well as ensuring fair and transparent enforcement. Keeping Canada strong means keeping Canadians secure, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Kataskamekw-Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, December is slated to be the most difficult month in decades. In my riding, the director of the Moisson Kamouraska Food Bank has told me that demand is skyrocketing. In Quebec, there were 3.1 million food bank visits in 2025, 37% more than in 2022. The demand for Christmas hampers will be unprecedented. With the price of food going up, eating is now practically a luxury. And yet the Liberals are still hanging on to their fuel tax, which is making food prices go even higher. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister refusing to help families in my riding who are struggling to put food on the table? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a great deal of respect for my colleague. As he knows, and as we all know, regular people in Quebec want to have a good job. Currently, a great many tariffs are being brought in by the American administration. During this difficult time, we will be there to protect our businesses that give people good jobs in Quebec. I will continue to work with him over this holiday period so that people can get good jobs and to help us have a strong safety net in Quebec and throughout Canada. We believe in that.
Neil Burney.
Mr. Speaker, in 2021, the Zim Kingston lost over 100 shipping containers. In 2016, the Hanjin Seattle spilled dozens, and now a barge off Bella Bella has nearly gone down with a full load. Each time, First Nations and local communities are left to respond and face lasting impacts. The Transportation Safety Board says Canada still has no system for cargo unit or marine debris spills. When will this government act on these recommendations and create a coordinated response system that includes coastal communities backed by an ecosystem service fee on cargo units so industry can help protect our coasts?
Of course, add a tax onto it. That's gonna fucking save everything.
Colleague for that question. It's an important issue indeed, and we want to make sure that marine safety, indeed the safety.
It's almost like if you didn't spend billions of dollars on stupid policies and programs overseas, you might be able to pay for those cleanup services when a couple shipping containers do fall off of a boat. Just saying.
We have the honourable member's cooperation and interest in this file, and I can assure him that we'll continue to be working on it as we work on the security of our supply chains and the sustainability of our marine transportation system.
Oh, shut up and sit down, you fool.
That puts an end to question period. Je désire informer la Chambre.
Alrighty. There we go. Question period over and done with.
Minutes to allow colleagues to leave the chamber.
Okay, I don't think a vote or anything is coming today, so that will do it for today's live stream. Thank you all for joining on YouTube, Rumble, and Kick, the 3 platforms. I was thinking about streaming on Twitch, but you know what? I'd probably get banned on there very quickly for having opposing liberal views. People got banned on there the other day for talking about a streamer who shocked his dog with an electric collar. Allegedly. Allegedly. I have no idea if he actually did it, but that's the big rumor going around. Anyway, Twitch sucks ass, and I will see you guys tomorrow roughly at the same time, around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Adios, everybody, and have a good rest of your day.
Tabling of documents. Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers.